His Holiness Maharishi Mahesh Yogi set up his religious empire in the Netherlands back in the 80s. The Maharishi first became known to the world in 1967 when he was visited by the Beatles in Bogor, India, for inspiration and advice. He now heads a vast organization with followers all over the world. He lives near his main Vedic university in a small picturesque corner of the Netherlands. It's set amongst a vast pine forest near the village of Vlodrop. Those attending the university and other local followers are even permitted to use a special currency, the Ram, which is accepted by some local businesses. It often ends up as a tourist souvenir, however. Not so long ago, the Maharishi spoke out against President Bush. The Maharishi said that Bush's bellicose posture has opened the road to the gates of hell. And back in 1991, he had more than a few unkind words for Bush the father, saying Washington was the greatest criminal city on earth. This came during the then Gulf War, and His Holiness had said this would be solved by mass transcendental meditation. If yogic flyers, his followers, gathered en masse in groups of 7,000 throughout the world, the use of thought alone would put an end to such a conflict. The Maharishi's solution received quite a snub from the United States. I was granted an audience with this well-known Indian holy man in his main television studio reception area. This was on the 12th of February, 1991. Doting followers were present, hanging on his every word, sitting on the floor in admiration of their leader. Flowers were everywhere on a well-lit stage, and amongst them the Maharishi himself. The entire interview was uplinked live to his worldwide television network. And, as it was so topical at the time, I first of all asked him if his Gulf War theory had gone down well in Washington.
I found that the main leader of all this was America. And then only this week I found why my message was not put to practice by President Bush. What I found was that Washington is the greatest criminal city on earth. Maximum crime today in the whole world is in the city of Washington. Then now I understand why this message of a peaceful approach for permanent peace on earth was not adopted by the leader of this war campaign, this government of USA. Because, see, if the room is all lighted with green light, one can only see green. And if the room is lighted with red light, one can only see red and can't see any other color. So when Washington is the greatest criminal city in the world, only criminal decisions could be taken by the government of USA. Otherwise, President Bush, I had always understood him as a kind civilian. A very kind civilian, not at all agitated and not stressed. But he put in the city of greatest crime, the environment of greatest crime in Washington, cannot make him any other decision than what is called criminal. He may have very fine reasons to stop aggressive Hussein, to do all this. Very beautiful reason he may have. But after all, killing is a crime. Whatever be the reason behind it. But killing is crime. War is a crime. But no peaceful, nourishing, harmonious, positive programs could be made in Washington because that is the worst crimeful city on earth. So the responsibility for war goes to crime in Washington and criminal atmosphere in Washington. This I came to know only this week when people told me about it.
Are you saying then that there's no hope for an early solution to the Gulf crisis, but that you can offer hope for it still?
I have alerted all the teachers of transcendental meditation in the Washington area to focus in Washington and have as many large groups to fly together in order that the crime could be neutralized. The atmosphere of crime must be neutralized in the city of Washington to create an atmosphere for President Bush and other colleagues of him to have a non-criminal decision. A non-criminal decision will be don't kill, don't war, don't conflict. All these positive decisions will come when now our teachers of transcendental meditation, they are having all kinds of these, they are not agitating towards war. No? Agitation is never our goal. We don't agitate towards against any government or any governmental policy or program. Only we want to eliminate the basis of this war and continuing decision of winning. So without talking to the government, we are going to create a crime-free Washington, and then the decisions from the government will always be nourishing and positive for the whole world. We go to the root, we go to the cause, and from there try to amend the symptoms.
Maharishi, you yourself have been teaching transcendental meditation for a long time. What's going to happen to you when you leave this life? What's going to happen to your whole structure?
What is going to be in my world is that I leave the world peaceful and happy, and wherever I'll go, I'll create the same influence of peace and happiness and bliss and all that. Because that goes with my life, knowledge and positivity and creativity.
You said wherever you go, so obviously, do you know where you'll be going, or your influence will be still, your influence, in other words, will still be very much present? I mean, do you have, for instance, do you have an heir apparent?
This what I spoke is in answer to your question that wherever I'll go, what will happen to me? So wherever I'll go, I'll radiate the same thing that I'm radiating here on earth.
And you are here in the Netherlands now. Was there any particular reason why you came from India to be here in the Netherlands, more or less in the centre of mainland Europe?
In Netherlands, what I find is the government is very just, and the people, nature of the people, maybe being below the sea level, it's more grounded in peace and happiness. And here we have a good accumulation of flyers, yogic flyers. There are about 800 yogic flyers in this. So my gravitation here must have been very natural. And here we are starting Vedic University, and in this Vedic University, all these Vedic values means values of knowledge, of natural law, and programs the full creative potential of natural law. So here in Netherlands, we are starting Vedic University, and the policy of the government is very good in Netherlands. The government of Netherlands honors freedom of the people. It's a very beautiful policy of the government that I found. So I thought, be here in a cordial atmosphere and soft atmosphere and create this European community on the ground of peace and positivity and happiness. Otherwise, what happens is, what has happened to Kuwait can happen to any country. It can really happen to any country what has happened to Kuwait, and I want to protect the world from such happenings in future. The policy is to create a group of 7,000 here, particularly in Netherlands, so as to protect the integrity of life in Europe. Otherwise, I repeat, anything that has happened to Kuwait can happen to any country in Europe or in any part of the world. Therefore, it's my desire to have a permanent group of 7,000 established in Netherlands with the Vedic University, so that this knowledge of natural law is shared by the people and create a strong, indomitable center for irreversible world peace.
And just a few closing questions, Maharishi. You yourself seem very much informed on what's happening around the world. Do you in fact find this out by reading the newspapers, watching television, or how?
I don't waste my time in reading the newspapers, nor that I ever see the television. But something that I should know somehow comes to me. In a minute, in 2 minutes, someone will just inform me. Just this information about Washington. Someone 2-3 days ago told me, do you know Washington is the worst criminal city in the world? Immediately the whole thing flashed to me. This is the reason why such decisions are taking place in Washington.
Maharishi.
So what I should know for my policies, and my policies are to protect all future of mankind, create permanent, this pure consciousness. The whole world consciousness should be pure, should be neat and clean and positive. And whatever I need regarding the news, someone will come and tell me. So this, I think, nature is supporting me, informing me of the realities of the world at the time when I need such an information.
Maharishi, do you just stay here in this beautiful place near Vlodrop, amongst the trees and everything, or do you look at other parts of the country, or do you know it all from here?
I just remain here, and I'm always thinking of the world situation, of the world consciousness, from my angle, not from the angle of politics or economics, but from my angle of consciousness. Consciousness is the fundamental element of life. It's that level of intelligence which governs the whole universe from within and creates all evolutionary direction. So that field of consciousness is my field, and I'm always thinking and evolving programs to make it simpler for the people and for the nations to have that purity of consciousness established in the whole collective consciousness of the world. So I am engaged in purifying collective consciousness of the world as much as I am engaged to purify the individual consciousness in the world. And collective consciousness from group meditations and individual consciousness from individual transcendental meditation program.
Maharishi, thank you very much for talking with me today.
It's beautiful.
At the end of the interview, I was handed a red rose by the Indian guru, His Holiness the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, speaking from his headquarters in the Netherlands in February 1991.